father, or you are involved in caring for children? If yes, then listen to Ask the Pediatricians every Thursday by 10 a.m. for insightful discussion on popular child health topics such as dangerous child health practices, immunization, infant feeding, developmental milestones, and so much more. You also get to ask questions on these topics and listen to answers to real-life child health issues by a pediatrician. Ask the Pediatricians Foundation is devoted to health education and information of parents and caregivers of children in the community to support you in raising healthy children. Don't miss Ask the Pediatricians with Dr. Gbemi because it's informative, educative, and interactive. Ask the Pediatricians Hour, the program for caring parents.
Hello everyone, and welcome to another episode of Atp Webinar or Atp Hour. I am Dr. Gbemisola Boyede. I'm a pediatrician, and I'm here today to discuss with us another very important topic that has to do with the health of our children. This program is brought to you by Ask the Pediatricians Foundation. At Atp Pediatricians Foundation, we're committed to the well-being of all children globally, but especially in sub-Saharan Africa and Nigeria specifically, where a lot of our children are still dying from preventable causes of death. And we do that through our health education programs, online and offline. We also do free community medical outreaches. So thank you so much for joining me today on whichever platform you're watching or whatever time of the day it is in your location. For those watching on Facebook or on YouTube, you're welcome. For those listening on our podcast, I also want to say thank you so much for joining us. And for those listening to me on Fresh Waves Radio, you are also warmly welcome. Thank you so much for joining us today. Just to remind you that you can also listen and watch all our past episodes on the same platform you're watching right now. So if you want to learn more about all the other topics we've discussed in the past, I encourage you to check out our past videos, especially on our YouTube channel, on our podcast, Ask Dr. Gbemi ATP podcast. And if you have any questions after watching or listening to today's program, feel free to ask your question on our Facebook group platform, Ask the Pediatrician Facebook group. You can message, just search Ask the Pediatricians on Facebook. It will take you to our group of over 700,000 parents, and you can post your questions there, and we'll try and do our best to answer them within 48 to 72 hours max. So you're welcome. And if you have any particular topic that you would like us to discuss, feel free to send us an email. You can send me an email at drgbemisola@askthepediatricians.com or askthepediatricians@gmail.com, and we will try our best to address this topic in future episodes. So once again, I want to say thank you so much for taking time to watch this important episode today. And for those of you who have seen the flyer, today we're talking about choosing safe childcare centers and I'm going to be giving tips for parents. And first, before I go into today's topic, why am I talking about safe childcare? I already told you that in Ask the Pediatricians, we are committed to the health and the welfare of our children. In fact, our mission is to see no child die from things that are completely preventable. And we're talking about preventing childhood killer diseases like malaria and like infections. We're talking about prematurity. These are the things that tend to kill children, and we're working hard to see these statistics come down very quickly. However, in recent times, I've seen another thing that is actually causing the death of our children, which should not even be happening. We are seeing our children getting killed in schools, in childcare centers where children are kept and where they should be safe. And so I found out that sometimes as parents, we really need to know how to choose the right areas or centers for our children care when we're at work. Of course, we all know we are living in the 21st centuries where both parents are most likely working and we are busy mothers. In my mother's time, I think they used to stay at home and take care of children, but these days, fast-paced world, a lot of parents, a lot of mothers work, and as a result of that they have to make use of childcare services and keep their children there while they're at work. And because this is an area where these children will be for sometimes from 4 hours, 6 hours, 8 hours, some parents even up to 10 hours a day. It is very important that the choice of such a place is taken with due diligence. And I'm surprised that sometimes parents don't use the right criteria in making these decisions. Sometimes parents are taking uh, uh, by the aesthetics, how beautiful the place look, or maybe their friends children are also going to that place, or maybe they know the owner of the place, they attend the same church or whatever. This may be good things, but these are not the important criteria for choosing childcare. I don't have the way to show the videos, but I'm sure most of us have seen all these news which I'm going to tell you today. Okay, so the first one I have here is dated 8th of January 2025. So all these news I'm going to share with you today are things that have happened in this brand new year 2025. The Nigerian police arrested, this is the Nigerian Police Force Facebook page that I'm reading from. They arrested one Stella in Wadigo, age 45, a teacher who physically abused a 3-year-old Abayomi Michael of Christ Method School in Ikorodu. She was arrested today, uh, 8th of January 2025, immediately after the criminal acts. Justice must be served. Thanks. Muyiwa Adejobi, Force PRO. So I'm reading from a public government agency, Nigerian Police Force page. A teacher, 45-year-old, physically abusing a 3-year-old in a care. This is something that happened this January. I'm happy the police has arrested her, but we all know this happens all the time, and I'm sure most of us have seen the video, and we have seen several other videos before now of teachers, caregivers abusing children in their care, and sometimes it even ends fatally, and this should not be happening. I mean, children are not dying from malaria, they are not dying from vaccine preventable diseases, they are not dying from infections or malnutrition. But why should a child who is in the care of a teacher or a caregiver now die from the actions, completely unnecessary, completely avoidable, completely preventable actions of their carers? This should not be happening, and it's our responsibility that we make sure we don't put our children. I know it's the responsibility of the government and all the regulatory bodies to make sure that people do the right thing in schools and all that, but at the end of the day, it is still your child. And as parents, I think it's our primary responsibility that we make sure we don't put our children in places where we have the like of Stella who are going to abuse our children. I'm going to give us another scenario. Second case, this is the publication by This Day newspaper, 23rd of January 2025. So this was just yesterday. And the Lagos state government has closed Smiley Kids Montessori, located in Heritage Place Estate, Shangotedo, following a tragic swimming pool accident that results in the death of 2-year-old Rafaela Ogbodo. I'm sure you can just search for this the newspaper online, and I'm sure most of us have had this news already. The mother of the child had cried out that her 2-year-old daughter, who left for school on a Wednesday, did not return home alive. And of course, the government has swung into action during the investigation, and the school has been locked. So a 2-year-old left home, went to school, completely healed and healthy, and then the child is dead that same day. That should not have happened. We've had instances again, we all remember what happened. This was one of our volunteers that was involved, and her daughter also, at inter-house sport also died, from, we don't know what happened during the school inter-house sport. Basically, I beginning to see this pattern of children whose parents are following all the right things, who are making sure they're feeding their children well, immunizing them, doing all the usual things we talk about, or to keep children healthy, all the choice of our strategies we've always discussed. But then the children go into a place that should be a safe place for them, and then they don't come out alive. So why should that be happening? So we're seeing a lot of children, and you can see the ages of these children. These are very young children, 2-year-old, 3-year-old. This is beginning to worry me as a pediatrician. And so that's why, even though this is not like a typical clinical health discussion, but I can tell you it's also very important. So the choice of the child care, when I use the word child care, I want to use it as a generic word for all the places we take our children: the playgroup, the nursery, primary school. Obviously, the older children, they tend to be, they are more focused, they are more aware, they can speak for themselves, but that does not completely mean that we should still not watch out for them. But I guess the younger children are the ones that are more vulnerable. Our babies, our toddlers, our preschoolers, they are the ones that are more vulnerable to this kind of scenario. So, and we as parents have to make extra efforts to make sure that these children do not die from something that is completely preventable. So today I'm going to be talking about what is important, what is important about when you're choosing a place as a parent who is working, because we are not going to say you can't work as a parent. I mean, you have to work, in this early year period. Choosing a good and a safe, that key word is safe. I know parents, sometimes we're looking at the aesthetics, we're looking at how expensive the school is, how popular they are, how fancy they are. Those may be good, but they are not the most important thing. The most important thing, we want a place that is safe for our children. It's one of the most important decisions we're going to take, because for those periods and those hours that your child is not in your care, you want to be sure that wherever your child is, that child is safe. So it is a very important decision. It's a decision we should not take lightly. And just like everything scientific, there are people that have done researches, and there have been about 13 of these guidelines that have been recommended in terms of what you should think about when you're choosing a child care program. You're choosing a nursery, a play group, whatever for your children. You need to make sure you are choosing what is safe and what is the best for your family. Of course, there are other things. You have to go there, you have to look, you have to even sometimes stay there. Don't just drop your child. You have to stay there and see what is going on and all that. But there are some kind of guidelines, some kind of tips that I just want to discuss with us that you should be looking out for, you should be thinking about, and you should be talking to those who are going to be the staff and in the childcare center that you are trying to choose for your child. So let's look at those criteria that we should be concerned about when deciding where to keep our children. The number one is supervision. The 2-year-old who died in the swimming pool died from lack of supervision. Of course, we know that children, toddlers are very adventurous. They are going to, explore. It is completely normal for their developmental age. And that is the job of the caregivers to make sure that these children are supervised adequately. And this supervision is not only when they're in the classroom, we're talking about supervision when they're in the playground, we are talking about supervision when they're even sleeping, we're talking about supervision when they are playing, we're talking about supervision, when they are doing all these activities that they do in the class, in the center. So it is very important that children are supervised. I always tell parents, when it comes to toddlers, it's only 1 second of you losing focus on them for all these accidents, all this accidental poisoning to happen. Those things are burns and all, they happen in seconds. So children must be supervised, and it is important. So you want to check what is the policy, what do they do, how do they supervise the children, and this is where we'll still talk about staff ratio and all that, because if you are giving a one caregiver maybe to 10-15 children, she's not going to be able to supervise them all. It's impossible. And that is when one will wander off. There was instance of a child who was left in the care of some people, and the next thing, the child was found dead in a bin. This happened in the United Kingdom. Obviously, this is not a childcare center, but that is just giving you an instance of things that can happen when there's lack of supervision. So you want to be sure, what is your policy? How are the children supervised? Do we just allow the children to run around and the teachers are sitting in the classroom, drinking tea and coffee and just say, okay, they'll be fine? No. Accidents, all those things are happening. Even when they're in the playground running around, there must be somebody there who is completely supervising the children. Supervision is very, very key. Most of these instances, like the second scenario I give to us, is lack of supervision. We can't just allow children to go and play around the swimming pool, and even we as parents, we also need to supervise our children, So, but the same thing approach must also be carried on when they are in the childcare area. Now, I'll run through them all, then I will come back and talk a little bit more. Another thing we need to talk about is the hygiene in the center. The hygiene is so key. I get to answer a lot of questions about children who keep on having recurrent infections. And the key denominator is the fact that they all attend crèches, they all attend daycare. And that's because sometimes some daycares don't pay attention to hygiene, to infection control policy. So you must ask, what do you do? Do the staff wash their hands in between the children? When they change nappy for one child, before they go to another child, do they just continue, or they will stay and wash their hands? Before they start feeding the child, do they wash their hands? When they finish taking care of one child, before they go to the other child, do they wash their hands? These are very important things, and I know that most parents don't even ask about that, but they are very key. If you don't want your child to be coming in and out of the childcare with infections, then you need to make sure that center has a good policy, and not just only policy on paper, but in practice. That is why sometimes you go and sit down and watch for like 1 hour and just, observe it. Sometimes you just drop in unannounced and just watch the staff, watch how they're taking care of the children, see the, things they do routinely. So if you show up unannounced like that, they can't just, switch things up for you. You can actually watch and see that they're doing the right thing. So we need to be sure that the staff, they know how, even the children, they teach the children to wash their hands before the children will eat, after they go to the bathroom, when they change diaper. Do they have a place for changing diapers? Do they have try to, when they're changing diaper, they keep an eye on the children. How do they dispose of the dirty diapers and stuff like that? So these are very important things, especially for the younger children, the toddlers, the preschoolers. It's very important that all these hygiene then are taken care of. Actually, for those between those 3 and 5 year old, most people, most schools, some or nursery, they just assume the children can do it by themselves. Most of them still don't know how to wipe properly, even though they now know how to talk and go to toilet. They need to be supervised, again supervision, and they need to be supported. Sometimes they need to be supported in wiping properly. We need to show them how to do the wiping from the front to the back for the girls especially, and then we need to make sure that they learn to wash their hands. These are things that are simple, but these are things that are very important. You can see that they are more important than even all the other things that most people think about first. Then what about the qualification of the people who runs that place? You need to know. Some people think, oh, childcare is not just to take care of children. No, there are more things that goes into care of children, and it will show in the, so these days we expect at least the lead or the owner or the whatever who is in charge should have some kind of qualification when in either child education or early child development or things like that, because then they have an idea of how children's development goes. They have idea of why it's important to supervise children, how to apply discipline and all that. So you want to know who is in charge, who is the principal or the headmistress or the proprietress, whatever name they're called, what is their qualification. You want to be sure you are putting your children in care of people who know what they are doing, because it's the director or whoever is the most senior person that at least will tell other, will guide the other staff how to do things right. And do they have experience? How long have they been doing this job? Do they have experience in childcare and all those kind of things? They are very, very important question to ask. So when you go to those schools, ask who is in charge, what are their qualifications. Most of them would have put it in their prospectus or the leaflet that they gave you. It's so important to ask that. Also, even the teachers, other people working, this does not apply to the, babies, for example. It may apply to those in the nursery. You want to be sure that these people are qualified. They know, a teacher who is abusing a 3-year-old, you can be sure that that person has no form of training in early childhood care. That person has no clue whatsoever, because you can't physically beat a 3-year-old, because if you understand how the brain of a 3-year-old works, they are not yet even understanding consequence and things like that. So beating that child is like punishing a child for being a child or for being a baby, So things like that, the way you work with children, you understand how their brain is functioning, what age this is the stage. There's a stage where children put everything in their mouth, or a motor stage. There's a stage where they have what we call concrete kind of thinking before they go on to abstract thinking. So those kind of things are things people learn when they are learning early childhood development and childhood education and all that. So people who don't go for proper training or have a qualification, they don't even understand what is going on, and you don't expect them to be able to do that for your children. So you need to ask. And very closely to that is the ratio of the child to the staff is one area where even most of our childcare facilities tend to fall short. There's no way one person will be able to adequately monitor these very active 2-3-year-olds. Maybe you put 10 of them together, they won't be able to do it. The ratio is 1 to 3. The younger the children, the higher the ratio. So you want to be sure that these people have enough time for your children, because they can monitor them well. So when they are doing this, they can monitor. You don't want, like, the person is here, all the other children are running off and all that. So how are they going to be able to monitor them? So you need to ask how many children in the class, or how many children in the center, how many staff, and then you work out the ratio, staff to children ratio, it has to be a right size. It has to be the right group, so that there's no point also. Oh, it's more expensive, obviously, but if you put in a cheaper one and with too many children to the staff, then you won't be surprised when all these accidents happen, which we pray we don't want to happen, but we have to do the right thing as well. So it is important that we make sure that the ratio is appropriate, especially for the younger babies. It shouldn't be more than 1 to 3 of them. Yeah, once it's more than that, it's not the best, it's not safe. All right. You also want to make sure that they have policy on immunization, that all the children will come to that center immunized, because you may have immunized your child, but another child is not immunized, and then they will catch one infection, and then they will bring measles or chickenpox, whatever, they bring it to the whole place, and everybody is exposed. So you want to make sure your own children are immunized, and you make sure that the center always has a policy about immunization. So most of the good center, they will ask to bring your child immunization card. So if they are not asking you this kind of question, that means they are not doing the right thing. So these are very, very important things to check when you are choosing the child care center for your child, because you want your child to be safe. Another thing is, how do they handle toxic substances? Are they very careless? Or what kind of things do they use to clean the floor, wipe the table? Are there things that if children accidentally touch or put their hands into, they are going to end up having poisoning? So these are very important things as well. Also, has the building been checked? There was a time, there was another incident of maybe building collapsing on children. Some of these are builders that don't have good integrity. So you don't want your children to go to a school and the next thing is all collapsing, or because they are constantly expanding the group, the classroom to accommodate more children, and they're not paying attention to safety. So you want to ask, where's your building plan? Have somebody check the structure of? It's very important. I know it may sound like you are a true no parent, but you need to let them know, I'm going to leave my child here. I need to be sure my child is safe. So if you look at the building is looking funny, or something is looking funny, or the structure is looking too, you may need to ask more questions. So these are very important. And then the staff, they know how to, not that they will leave something where children can go and maybe pick on soy diapers and they start mouthing it, and get their hands dirty on it. So these are very important. You need to make sure that the area is safe from toxic substances. Another plan is, you need to ask is whether they have an emergency plan. If something happened, what do you do? So most of these schools, they make you sign. If they don't make you sign all this thing, like, can we give your child paracetamol if they have fever and we're not able to reach you? Can we take your child to the hospital? Can we take your child to the emergency room? Some of the schools, they make you sign those consents. If they don't, then that means they don't have an emergency plan. There was an instance of a child in another very high-profile school where they paid millions, in terms of naira, in terms of school fees, and this child was ill, and they kind of cared the child. Eventually, the child died. The school also came under a lot of fire. I'm sure we're all familiar with the story. That was about a couple of years back now. And all of this is that there was no emergency plan. Everybody was go and call the parents. Parents are still coming from how many miles, hours, or of journeying away. What stops the school from taking the child to the nearest very standard hospital with good doctors and pediatricians to treat the child? And that would not have happened. So there must be an emergency plan. Like, if something happened and we cannot get hold of you as a parent, what can we do? And you must have signed as a parent, take my child to this hospital. These are the drugs you can give my child. These are the drugs you cannot give my child because the child is allergic to them. All those things have to be clearly documented. All those things have to be signed. All those things have to be in the school record. They must know what to do. They must have your emergency contact. They must have emergency contact of your own emergency, So if they can't get you, who is the next person they can call? Who is the third person they can call? Who is the fourth person they can call? You need to give everybody the names of those people and their phone number. It will be very unusual for the school not to reach one out of the four of them in case of an emergency. These are things that have to be clearly documented, So you must make sure the school gets you. And for the schools that are listening to me, and I know I'm talking to the parent, but if you are a staff and you run a school or a child care center, please also take note of this thing. You need to make sure you implement all these policies, because sometimes it is even the delay in seeking care that kills the children. It's not the problem that happened. It is because people are like either trying to cover things up because of this our blame culture, or trying to hide it and not seeking the right help on time. Whereas what they need to do is to activate the emergency plan. If there's an emergency, if a child gets injured in our school, the closest hospital to us, 40 meters, 1 mile away, is so hospital. We will take your child there. The doctors there will start treating, giving emergency care. Yes, you sign it. You won't have to wait until the day it's happened and they will start calling they can't get hold of you. Your phone is dead. You are in another state or something. These are very important things. There must always be an emergency plan. Even things like fire drills. I know we don't do a lot of that in Nigeria, but it is important. Like if there's fire, how do we get the children out safely? Where are the fire doors? We do a lot of programs, and people don't even know there's a fire exit. They don't have no clue. It must be there in school. There must be a fire assembly ground. Who are the fire wardens? Who are the people to tell us what to do? These things can happen even in schools, and there must be a plan on what to do, how to do it. We need to be planned, and you need to ask the school, what is your plan? How do you have a policy? Do you have all these even other natural disaster? What do you do? There's been a storm, there's this, what do we do? I know we don't have too many of them. Another one, which is very important, which, the first scenario I gave, is the child abuse. There must be safeguarding policy. Lagos State Government of Nigeria has a child safeguarding policy for all the schools. What should be done, what cannot be done. All those areas where teachers will beat children and they will beat them mercilessly and say they are disciplining them. That is child abuse. It's physical child abuse. And that's exactly what happened. Somebody is beating a 3-year-old. That should not be happening. The school must have a policy. So when you're taking your child to childcare, you need to know what is their safeguarding policy. How are they ensuring that their staff are not abusing children? Have they been trained? Level 1, level 2 training on child safeguarding. If another staff abusing a child, how do they raise concern? If as a parent you see a child being abused, how do you raise it? Who is the safeguarding lead for the school? Why is the policy? What happens? All these things have to be clearly documented, and you must know that the school is committed to your child being safe. In some countries, like in the United Kingdom, every teacher you go to what they call DBS, you must have, clearance from the police and all that you are not somebody who can abuse children. Before you work in schools, before you work with children, before you work in a child care center, we need to, I guess we will get there as well in Nigeria, but it's very important as a parent that you know that the school that is caring for your children or the child care, they have a clear policy. Even on ATP, even though we're an NGO, we have a safeguarding policy because we work with children, we take care of children. We have a policy about whoever is going to be our volunteer. You must know that you cannot abuse children. If you have had history of abusing children or history of being a convict and all that, you cannot work with us. is very important. So it's very important that we have the school. If there's a policy, the first scenario of that Stella that was arrested by the Nigerian police force will never happen, because you already know you don't. The school must have what is the discipline policy. If a child does something, this is what happened, this is how you take it. Not that a 3-year-old is being physically abused in the name of so-called discipline or whatever. I don't know. I know we used to think it's our culture, but there's a difference between discipline and abusing a child. All this one, we see pictures of children with marks on them, and they say somebody beats them or the teacher is correcting them. That's not correction, that is abuse. And such people should be arrested, like the Stella was arrested. That is how it should happen. So the policy must be in place. They must have things like CCTV. To hacks, do they have a CCTV? Do they have nanny camera, so that you can actually see if you think something is going wrong? They can play for you how what has happened, and it must be there, so there's no confusion about what happened to your child. Some of these abuses have been picked up by those cameras, and these days we have all this technology that even you can be seeing what is happening in your child. Some school does, some centers actually do that they give you access to the CCTV and camera. You will see your child, even though you are, at work. You can see that the child is okay and everything. It's a good thing, because then it's a transparent arrangement. Then you know that your child chances of being abused is very, very low. So these are things that we must make sure a center that we're going to put our child, they are aware, they know what is called child abuse, they know what is safeguarding, they have a way to prevent it and a way to deal with it. That is very, very important. And the staff also have to make sure that they themselves, they don't put themselves in a scenario that will be compromising. So that's another thing. Medications, if your child needs to take medication in school, it's very important that they know. I remember one of our volunteers told me of a scenario where I think a child was supposed to take a drug in school, and maybe they gave the wrong dose or they gave the wrong thing. I can't remember the details now. So it's so important. So that's why some schools have a policy, they don't give anything, they don't administer drugs. And for those who have to administer, they must have clear policy, like this is the dose that must be administered, is exactly that's not dose you bring. If it's 1 tablet or 1 5 meals, you don't bring the whole bottle to school. And then you must label with the name of the child, the time to give the medication, what medication, all those things, clear policy. And if they say we won't give the medication, you keep your child at home and give your child your medication until the child is well, you bring the child back. So you must make sure that the school has policy. They must also have policy on medication that the school can give without asking you. So common things like paracetamol. Your child has fever, can we give paracetamol? If your child is allergic to, like, say, ibuprofen, you tell them, don't give my child ibuprofen. You can give paracetamol, and only paracetamol, nothing else. All these are very, very important things that we must make sure that the school has a policy on, and the child care center has a policy on. What about staff training and first aid? Ideally, most of our staff who works in childcare should be a trained first aider. There's a lot of free first aid training online. You don't have to be a doctor or a nurse to be a first aider. These are just basic things: how to treat a cut, a wound, how to, if somebody arrested, how to resuscitate it. That's one of the things we did with our ATP first aid training for our secondary school students, teaching them what to do in cases of medical emergency. Somebody has got a cut, somebody has had a fracture, somebody is bleeding from the nose. A teacher, a carer of children in a child care center should know what to do. They should all be trained first aiders. And it's free. All this first aid training is free. And Red Cross, all those, they're organizing them, and they're all available online. So it's very important that you ask, are your staff trained in first aid? Ask. They must know. If a child is choking, what do they do? Just maybe a back slap or two, they must know what to do. It's not the time to start panicking and start pouring water on the child, which is what most Nigerians do anytime somebody fainted. And there's nothing like that in any part of resuscitation. We should all learn how to do basic life support, chest compression. Even if we don't know how to breathe, at least know how to compress. And when somebody's collapsed and all that, that's what we should be doing instead of pouring water on people and shouting their name or pouring anointing oil on them. We should make sure that the staff, at least, even if not all the staff, at least there must be one person who is a trained first aider, who knows what to do in a scenario of an emergency. You must ask that is any of your staff who can do that. Playground. This, you must visit the playground. You must see the equipment. Are they safe? Are there, some of this playground, usually most of the time it's either they are grassy or like sawdust kind of field, something soft. But some people have playground that are like concrete. That's very dangerous for children because they can hit their head, they will bleed, they can have head injury. So you need to go check the playground. What about the equipment, all the things they put in there, all the slides and the what's it called, trampoline and all those kind of things? You need to make sure they are safe. Some of them needs to be like the trampoline, for example, they need to be like safety netting around them so that when children jump on them, they're not going to fall out or anything like that. We know that children are still prone to injuries no matter what you do, but at least we want to reduce this to minimum. You need to go check the playground. You need to check the playground, make sure everything is safe. If they have swimming pool, do they have guards around it? Do they have a live do they have all the life jacket? Do they have what do they call the name of these people that can resuscitate the child if somebody is drowning? Who is on duty? Some people just think it's just nice to have a swimming pool. That means your school is fancy. It is not that having the swimming pool being fancy that's important. It is the safety that is important. It's better not to have a swimming pool if you don't have safety measures in place. You don't have somebody who can keep the children safe and all that. You don't have, guards and stuff around it. Then there's lifeguards. That's what I was trying to remember. Then there's no point, because we don't want scenarios where children will run. Children don't need to go into a deep water for them to drown. They just need only a small volume. So safety is priority. Okay, so you've noticed that everything I've said now, we have not talked about the cost of the of the child care. We've not talked about fancy and all that. No, those are good if you want something that is affordable. You want something that is lovely. Maybe it's your other good recommendation from people who have used the staff, who have used the center before. They have lovely staff. The children are happy there. The food, I didn't mention food. Food is also important. I know sometimes parents go with their own food, but they must have good hygiene when it comes to food. How do they process food? Is it the school that will give the children the food that they have cooked? Then you need to go check their kitchen. You need to go check where are their staff cooking the food. Have they been screened for typhoid? Have they been declared typhoid free? All those things are very important. You need to go check. If not, you're going to have an outbreak. But if you're the one bringing your food, how do they keep the food? How do they preserve it? How do the children eat? Washing their hands? All those hygiene. Water. What is the source of water for the children? The toilets, are they clean? Are they, is there a cleaner there who is always making sure that the whole place is always neat and tidy? The premises, are they clean and safe and tidy? These are all very important issues. So let's not just choose child care flimsy issues like the cost, or maybe our friends are also using it, or we know the owner, blah blah. You need to not be sentimental when it comes to the safety of your child. You don't want to compromise the safety of your child. So make sure you go through all these searching checklists based on research. What we want is a safe childcare. I just want you to know that there are alternatives to childcare. You can actually decide to keep your child at home, until they are really of proper school age. For us as pediatricians, school age is actually 6 years old. All right, of course, most of them will start around 4, 5, which is the preschool. But for the younger ones, instead of taking them to daycare or play group and all that, you can decide to have a nanny and keep your child at home. At least you have only one carer and only your child, and you can monitor. You can put your own nanny cam and make sure that you do your own rights bits by your child. And of course, you may decide to care for the child until you think your child is safe enough to be in a good center before you go back to work. But of course, if we have to now take our children to these childcare centers, we need to make sure that we doubly make sure. It's a very important decision that these children are going to be safe. No mother prays that the child she's sent to school alive is brought back to her dead. Nobody prays for that. And that should not even have happened. Why should a child who is not sick go to school and come back dead? Another scenario which I need to talk about before we round up is this habit of force-feeding children that some centers do. Make sure that if you actually, for those of us who are still babies under 2 who are still being fed, please make sure they don't force feed your child. Even if the child will not eat, make sure they don't force feed your child. Okay? I've shared it. I'm sure if you go to our Facebook group, I've shared that newspaper article of a grandmother, 70-year-old in the United States, who was sent to prison maybe for 15 years. I can't remember now. When she should be resting and relaxing. What happened? She force-fed a child, and the child died. And of course, it was tried as manslaughter, and she had to go to prison for that. Please, I know a lot of mothers they just want children to eat. I understand. Listen to last week discussion webinar. We talk about tips for fussy eaters. But please do not force feed them. Do not encourage the crash. I've been to crashes and places where you will see the way they just hold the children, hold them out, and just pour everything into their mouth. Wow. Make sure they don't do it to your child. Ask them, do you do that? Go and sit there and just watch and be sure they are not. If they are doing it, take your child away from that. Another thing some crèches do, especially in Nigeria, which is not standard practice, but I think it's worth mentioning, which is why it's important for you as a parent sometimes to drop in unannounced in the crèche. Some people drug the children. Yes, they drug them because they just want them to sleep. And what do they give them? They give them all this cough syrup or give them Piriton and all that. And the children just sleep and sleep. So if your child comes back from crèche, daycare, and they're always sleeping, you need to be sure that your child is not being drugged. And I'm saying that we know this is what some people do. So you need to be sure. Check, does your child sleep more during the days they go to the crèche more than when you are with them maybe during the weekends? You need to be sure. Just drop in unannounced. So these are basic things we need to check. Of course, this kind of quality safe childcare sometimes may cost us more, but it's better to be safe than to be sorry. So today I've been talking to us about things we should watch out for, things we should look out for as parents when we're choosing childcare. Don't go for fancy, don't go for expensive, don't go for cheap, go for safe. Okay, go for safety first. Safety first. Make sure they have adequate arrangement for supervision. The children must always be supervised. You can never leave toddlers under 5 unsupervised at any point in time. Make sure they have good hygiene, infection control policies on hand washing, disposing of wastes and all that. Make sure they are qualified child education, early years providers. Both the directors and some of the teachers, they must be qualified. Make sure they have the appropriate child to staff ratio. Usually for the babies and under 2, we say 1 to 3. Okay, the older children, it can begin to increase a little bit more, but please make sure they have good enough staff to the children. Make sure the children in the center and your own child are fully immunized. And the center, there are centers that will not take your child if they are not immunized. Yes, there are centers that will not take your child if they are not immunized, and that is how it should be. If you don't want to be immunized, then you keep your child at home so that your child is not a risk to other people. Make sure they have good safe practices. They are not using all these harsh chemicals, and they are not just keeping it anyhow. They make sure they are locked away properly, and of course they must have an emergency plan. If something happens, what do we do? Who do we call? Where do we go? They must have a plan. They must have fire drills in case of these emergencies that are not to do with the child now, but in the environment, there's a fire, there's a storm. What do we do? They must have that. They must have safeguarding arrangements. No child abuse. And child abuse is not just physical. Even all this emotional abuse, calling children stupid or names, they must have policy about it. And staff who doesn't follow they must take them off the staff. They must train staff. They must have policy on medication. Do we administer? Do we don't give? Or if we're going to give, how is it, have to be kept, and not to avoid errors. Or at least 1 or 2 staff must be training first aid. And of course, you need to check the playground is safe and it's well manned, and even all the equipment is safe. These are things we should be doing to make sure that our children centers are appropriate for them. That's one of the most important decisions we will take. As long as we are not going to be home to look after our children, we need to make sure that whoever is doing it on our behalf, or whichever place our children are kept, they are safe. So that these 2 scenarios I started with, which happened this year. This is just a brand new year. We are just 23 days into the year, and 2 children, have suffered severe. One has died, and one has been severely abused. So that should not be happening. So our children should be able to go to wherever we keep our children. They should be safe. They should be safe, and it's our responsibility. Parents, teachers, schools have their own responsibility. Government have their own responsibility. But today, I'm not here to talk to those category, because I think we have a different forum for addressing government and addressing teachers and schools. But this particular forum is for the parents. So please, because at the end of the day, we are the one that have the children. The school will only tell us sorry, and they may apologize. They may even be punished by the law, justice and all that. But sometimes it doesn't bring the child back. That is it. It doesn't bring them back. So we need to make sure that this does not happen. So I hope you have learned today, and I hope if your child is already in a care center, you go check it out. And if you are not sure they are safe, you may want to start thinking and looking for an alternative that is safer for your child. If you have any question on this very topic, which is very dear to my heart, because anytime I read up a story of a child dying in those circumstances that has to do with the center where they are, or a child being abused in the center where they are, it just breaks my heart, because we are working so hard to make sure our children are well and safe. Why should a school or a care center be a death trap for our children. It shouldn't be. So that is why I decided that I need to talk about this topic. So if you have any question about it, or if you're a school owner or care providers and you want to clarify some of the issues I've said, feel free to go to our Facebook group and drop your questions there, and I will come and answer them. Or alternatively, you can send me an email at drgbemisola@axipediatricians.com, or you can email axipediatricians@gmail.com. Thank you so much for listening. I'll see myself or any of my colleagues come your way again next week with another very important topic that has to do with death of our children. I want to wish you a very good day and say, keep our children safe at all times. Thank you, and have a wonderful, wonderful day. Just bye from me.
Are you a mother, father, or you are involved in caring for children? If yes, then listen to Ask the Pediatricians every Thursday by 10 a.m. for insightful discussion on popular child health topics such as dangerous child health practices, immunization, infant feeding, developmental milestones, and so much more. You also get to ask questions on these topics and listen to answers to real-life child health issues by a pediatrician. Ask the Pediatricians Foundation is devoted to health education and information of parents and caregivers of children in the community to support you in raising healthy children. Don't miss Ask the Pediatricians with Dr. Gbemi because it's informative, educative, and interactive. Ask the Pediatricians Hour, the program for caring parents.